Welcome back to Epic Agents, the best in real estate podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hamm, and today joining me are two epic real estate agents in the Houston market, Nicole and John Cartee. Nicole and John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you. I think you're the first duo I've had on the podcast, so this is awesome. I love this. It's a great test too for Riverside, the software I'm using to record, to make sure that it keeps up and can track all of us. So this is great. I appreciate you taking the time. I know how super busy you are. I followed you guys a little bit on social media. That's how we connected, and I love some of the niche that you work in. I think is going to be really relevant and cool to share with listeners. So before we dive into that, though, I do want to ask if you'd share just a little bit of your background for listeners. So usually hometown, maybe a previous career if there was one. There usually was in this industry. And then what drew you to real estate? And we'll go ladies first. So Nicole, why don't you start us off?
Okay, yeah, so hometown, goodness, I grew up in Alvin. So that's about 45 minutes south of Houston. And then previous career, so kind of like you said, this industry, I don't think anyone's, in high school, like, I want to grow up and be a real estate agent. Like, that doesn't really happen. I think most of us kind of fall into it. So I was actually going to school for architecture, and then I have epilepsy, and at the time that I got started, which is about 5 years ago, that basically put me in like a medical discharge, if you will. So I had to drop out of I was in full-time, college, and then I was working full-time as well. And that specific disability stress makes it worse. So yeah, I ended up at home basically trying to figure out what I could do where I could manage my own schedule and still do something for work. And then, I don't know if it's close to architecture or not, but kind of in the same region. I was looking at interior design stuff, doing that online at home. And then, real estate popped up, and I was like, well, that's cool. Maybe I could flip houses or something, that'd be kind of close to what I was doing. And that's basically it. So yeah, I got my real estate license, and then got that started, and it fit really well with what I was doing. And I loved how I was able to meet people, and been doing it ever since. So it'll be 5 years for me in the summer.
Awesome. And it still, really kind of lines up a lot with your passion for architecture, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so what came first, the real estate license or John?
Actually, the real estate license.
Okay. How long have you guys been together?
A year and a couple months.
Yeah, we got married last October. So,
okay. Awesome.
Congratulations. We've known each other for years before that, and she's actually part of the reason I got into real estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue actually into your story, John. If you want to kind of take the ball and run with it there, share a little bit about how you got into the industry and what you were doing before.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in North Carolina and went to college, played golf in college. Went to law school afterwards, was pretty dead set on a corporate law career, business degree, law degree. It all made sense. And I had the chance to work for Nike, world headquarters in Oregon. I was in-house there for almost 6 years, specific with Nike Golf. And then obviously that got downsized, and left there, kind of fell into a corporate career that gave me the opportunity to relocate to Texas, which was for economics, culture, and economy. I really wanted to relocate out of the Pacific Northwest, and so they gave me an opportunity of Dallas or Houston, and I picked Houston. And shortly thereafter, met Nicole and was just watching her crush it in real estate, and just like, man, she's making that look like a lot of fun and clearly having success with it. So met with her and her mentor for a lunch, and I guess you could say the rest is history. I got my real estate license a couple years ago. Kind of found my niche in real estate. At first, I was trying to be all things to all people, and I realized that's not authentic to who I am as a person, nor was that a good way to live my life. So trying to continue to just hone in, and a year and a half ago met my business partner with AYRE Realty. So we started a team under a big brokerage, and now we're actually an independent brokerage. So we get to work together as a team, and then we're under the brokerage that we're part owners of. So it's a really fun outlet for my love of business and entrepreneurship, and also just the love of real estate that I found over the past couple of years.
Yeah, just a great blend of a lot of different passions that you both share. and the entrepreneurial part of a real estate career obviously is so alluring, but also is what makes it so challenging too. So now you have a vested interest in your brokerage. You guys have a team, and you're able to delegate some of the workloads. Share a little bit of. Oh, first of all, I want to ask you, where in North Carolina were you from?
Greensboro?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm in the Charlotte market.
Okay, yeah. So I grew up in Greensboro, spent most of my childhood on the courses in Pinehurst.
Oh yeah, yeah, good place
And
to
then,
play. Yeah,
yeah, beautiful there. And then went to Clemson.
awesome. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I'm in specifically the Lake Norman area of
Okay,
just north of
yeah.
Charlotte, so in the Lake Norman market.
We
Uh,
spent Christmas with my parents in Greensboro, so we flew through Charlotte from
Okay.
Houston.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Yeah, that usually all roads on the East Coast usually pass through Charlotte. So yeah,
Yeah, if you can
or
avoid Atlanta,
flights.
you get Charlotte. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, share. So I wanted to ask you. I did leading up to this conversation a little bit of research. I noticed that you have, and you mentioned this too a little while ago about you found your niche,
hmm
and it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like that niche may be new construction.
hmm
Can you share a little bit about how you developed that line of business, how you got involved in that side of the business?
For sure, yeah. So, like I said, I was trying to do everything. I was calling people in foreclosure. I was doing open houses. I was doing everything, and just felt like I was being pulled in a lot of different directions. And I really like to go an inch wide, mile deep. It's kind of my personality. Like I really want to know everything there is to know about something, and that's usually the one or two some things you can know everything about. So I started visiting model homes, talking to the builder sales reps, and Houston is very new construction heavy. There's a lot of suburban new communities being built, a lot of regentrification of older communities inside the loops. And Houston, obviously, you've got the two big loops. So inside the loop, kind of downtown, there are a lot of older houses being torn down, and they're building new construction communities there. So I felt like I'd kind of tapped into something really unique. And obviously, people go to new construction, and that's where they start their search. So it's almost like a revolving door open house. And so I focused rather on trying as a new agent in a very saturated market, trying to market to a bunch of different consumers. Like if I can market myself to the new construction sales rep who has people who need representation coming through their door constantly, and be in that community enough that I'm an expert, so when I run into people who are in the community shopping for a home, I know the schools, I know the closest grocery store, I know the closest gym, I know the closest places of worship, then I can really become the expert of a smaller segment where there's a lot of traffic. So that's kind of what drew me into it, and I found that the more I invested in that, the more I enjoyed it. You're also marketing beautiful homes. They're brand new, state of the art, different styles, but it was a great way for me to build relationships and build my network and meet clients that fit my personality. So the more I've invested in that, the more I've enjoyed it. And I've branched out into resale more recently, but there's still a foundational bedrock of new construction that there's a lot of that in Houston. So if you can tap into that, it's a great opportunity.
I love that phrase, an inch wide and a mile deep. I'm a big Seth Godin fan. I don't know if you've ever read any of Seth Godin's stuff or listened to
Yes,
his
sir.
interviews, but I first heard that phrase from him years ago on a podcast interview that he was doing with the guy who wrote The 4 Hour Work Week. I forget his name offhand. Also a huge influencer as well and genius, really. But I've said that phrase so many times over the last 5 years since I started producing my first podcast, because I truly believe like that's the path to success, and especially in a saturated and broad industry like real estate, it's so important to like pick your lane and kind of focus on that and stick with it. Nicole, are you kind of in that same niche as well?
So I actually originally started out in more resale. I did have a builder that I worked pretty closely with, and he let me like make calls because I was like checking in on that, sales rep pretty regularly. But yeah, I'm pretty resale heavy focused. And then since we started working together, I've added in more of that new construction. So I think now we're also trying to set it up to where it's like, now we bring the best of both worlds as far as that, that knowledge gap is concerned. And that really helps with our clients as well too, because there are clients where they have old listings that they want to sell and they want to buy new construction. So yeah, I got a lot of my background and early learning years was mostly resale.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and that definitely does show some complementary skill sets that sort of overlap there, and make really probably lends itself to a great team dynamic, right? Because you're not really stepping on each other's toes, and you're not really competing with each other. You're really complementing each other.
We have a lot of fun with it. And we did a disc assessment recently, and not surprisingly, I was a high DI and she was a high SC. So I feel like when we do buyer's reps or listing appointments together, our clients are kind of getting a total package because you've got the driver and the intensity, and you've got the analytical and the kind of relational. So I think that it gives us not just the knowledge base of new construction and resale, but also just kind of personality wise, we can connect with them and really build rapport. And I know school districts in the suburbs that she would know more of the resale older community school districts. And so whatever the question they ask us, one of us is probably going to have some genuine knowledge of that, where it's not let me research that and call you later. But we've actually, I've had a client buy in that specific suburb, whether it was new construction or resale. So it gives us two heads of knowledge from different sides of the industry to really benefit our clients. And it's really helpful.
Even just geographically, from our own experience and past history, before we've came together, I've sold in areas and regions that he hasn't sold, and then vice versa. So it's there's parts that are more inner loop and city where he's okay, let me ask Nicole. He's hey, what do you know about this place or this street? This client's asking about this. I'm I would not sell someone a house anywhere near that street. You need to go 2 down, and I can, street by street by street, know everything as far as the city. And then he has some of these suburban, different new build communities that I'm learning now, where he's oh, this is this builder, and that's that builder, and this is this, and this neighborhood. I'm how do you know all this?
That streets divide that ISD versus that school district. So they want to be in this side because they have a high school or whatever the case might be.
Yep. Yeah.
We definitely comes in handy. We have 2 brains, and I think it works really well. Something, and I'm exaggerating on your question a little bit more, but...
Oh, no, you're fine. Yeah.
Something we discussed pretty recently, we had a listing appointment, or a buyer's appointment, and we've been trying to kind of hone in on our skills as a couple for as a realtor, and not only is that you get that whole 2 for 1, but it's pretty cool because when we're sitting down with the actual client themselves, there's going to be things where that really showed itself, where I know stuff that he doesn't, and he knows stuff that I don't, and then it's really symbiotic. It works out really well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm actually mostly a referral agent. So I focus, speaking of picking a niche an inch wide and going a mile deep, I focus 100% of my effort on marketing and lead generation. And I leave the real estate, the business of real estate transactions, contracts, and negotiations to the pros who have done dozens, if not hundreds of them. So, so I love that. I love that. Again, that mindset and that concept of just kind of focusing on a lane and staying in it. John, I got to ask you, I'm sure listeners are wondering too, and I'm so curious to know, how did you make that first connection with the builder? Do you work with primarily one builder, or have you networked with several?
I've tried to network with all of them.
Sure.
So I've networked. So in the community that we actually live in, there are 8 different builders. I've done deals with most of those. It's a lot about just building rapport with the individual sales reps and truly providing them value, because anyone can walk into their house, in their model home, hand them a business card, take some pictures of their beautiful staged home, put it on Instagram, and leave. So I try to really build that relationship. Be hey, what house do you currently have that's sitting that your sales manager is hey, we're holding costs are getting too precious for that house, we got to move it fast. How can I help promote that specific house? And even if I don't bring the buyer, if they see my video and send it to their realtor and their realtor brings them and buys that house, now that sales rep's like, hey, like John helped me. So the next time I have someone that comes in that needs a lease buyout, which is one of the services we offer, or maybe they have a house to sell and they're concerned about timing, and so they're worried about contingencies, and the sales rep doesn't want to answer all those questions. Like, hey, here's a business card of a realtor who I trust. They know my product. They've sold a lot of houses in the area. Let them answer those questions and get into the nitty gritty, and that's how they can help me. But first, I have to help them. So I think the biggest thing for building a relationship with new construction is what value can you add to the builder, not what can you take from them, what can you add to them. And you only have so much time. So you can, after you meet as many as you can, you're gonna be like, okay, I like that guy. That guy played football at University of South Carolina, so we can have some fun trash talk about Clemson versus South Carolina and grab a sandwich and have a good time. So I'm going to really focus on his community. I'm going to really focus on his houses, because you can't do that for everyone.
Sure.
So you do have to eventually kind of whittle down to these are the 15 sales reps. I'm going to make sure I talk to them every month. I'm going to promote a house of theirs every month. If they want me to do an open house on the weekend in one of their inventory houses, I will make sure I can say yes to that. But you do eventually, at first you just have to meet as many as you can. And you're going to have some builders that you're like, well, I just don't like their product. And you're going to have other builders like, I would do anything to live in one of these houses.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, personality can help you narrow that as well, but you really want to just add value to what they're trying to do, and it always comes back to you as well.
You're going to find, I agree with that. There's, for someone who's interested in building relationships, no pun intended, with builders, that there are several in every market. I've connected with and networked with several here in the Charlotte market, and there are some that I click with a lot more so than others. And there are some whose products are just so phenomenal that it's just, you just want to be a part of it, right? You just want to you want to sing their praises and bring your clients to see their work. So. That's great. So I wasn't sure. So just good old fashioned. How can I help you? How can I serve you? And how can we start a relationship? So I love that. That's very cool. Charlotte's not as sprawling as Houston. Houston's like the third biggest city in the country, or somewhere along those lines.
We say Houston's an hour away from itself. Like you're driving for an hour and still be in Houston.
We have a lot of obviously. I think everywhere in the Southeast, except for a few areas, is pretty popular right now. Is growing. Charlotte's been an emerging market for about 15 years now. It's just been exponential growth year over year, and so we have a lot of new construction as well. Some very exciting builders doing some very exciting work. Anywhere from the even production homes under $1 million to semi-custom, the $1 million to $2 million, and then of course the luxury homes have been spectacular, and I think that that's got to be a lot of fun to work with a new home builder. Not to mention, when you show a client a new home, there's not a lot of objections, right? There's not a lot you have to apologize for. It's all brand new.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think there's knowledge, or there's power within that knowledge as well, though.
Yeah.
Because whenever you can speak on a brand new house and still say like, oh, well, we're still gonna, make sure we check on this item or this item, or, like this builder is great for this, but you still might want to check on this, thing about the roof or the insulation, or, this builder does, their 2x4 a little wider than the other one. So, still having that knowledge base is really key, and I think it helps the clients really value us as an agent as well.
Yeah, especially to your point, having that knowledge of the differences between the builders and the nuances, and you probably only learned that by really getting to know the builders and studying their work and seeing their homes and working with them. So that makes a lot of sense. What do you think is, Nicole, you have a huge social media following. John, you're getting there.
You're behind. I'm trying.
But I know that there are 1,000 ways that we can market our business. I don't put a whole lot of energy into social media. I say that, but I still do, right? I mean, it's an integral part of what I would call a marketing funnel. Like you have to have those touch points, and social is where the public is at. So you got to have a presence there. but what are there other ways that you would say that have been keys to your success so far in the real estate industry, as far as like not only marketing, but marketing listings, but also marketing your brand?
I think for me so far, this is something we discussed earlier, and we both kind of agreed on, is like just being genuine in everything that you're doing. So like an open house will get me clients as much as, going and knocking on doors or whatever, but like I think the actual interaction that you're having with people, if you would compare that to social media, is being like fully 100% genuine. You know what I mean? Like any client I've gotten from any career that I've been in, whether I got someone from social media or like in person, anytime I can like think of like, oh, my mess ups and my mistakes, and you try to grow from that. And I'm like, well, I didn't get that client because I was more worried about trying to point out like the product and what I'm selling, and I was focused on that and just trying to talk it up. And then the times where I got a client super easy and I barely even talked about what I actually do, and I just talked about what I bring to this table more as like myself. I think that's the biggest success. So if you take that into like a marketing aspect, and it's something we've also discussed we need to grow and be better at, is showing who you genuinely are, and people will come to you because of that. There's plenty of houses out there, and there's plenty of videos of houses out there, and we love and enjoy doing that. But yeah, saying like, hi, this is who I am as a person, follow me for me, and then, buy for me because you like me,
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of goes along the lines too of what we were talking about earlier about sort of finding your lane. And I think it is important to, even though it may alienate some potential clients, I believe that, really sharing who you really are and being yourself and being authentic and genuine will draw those who are or you're meant to work with closer to you. So again, you can't please everyone. Nothing we do is we'll never be able to please everyone. So, and we will never be able to attract everyone. So yeah, I think that's an important game plan, an important strategy is to just remember to be authentic and genuine, and I could see that, Nicole, in your marketing for sure on social, and John as well. John, do you have some podcasting experience?
So we've done a couple episodes of different real estate and Houston area podcasts together, but other than that, no.
Okay. All right, cool. I was going to say, I wasn't sure if you guys had your own podcast or not, but you should.
Yeah, we've recorded one kind of trial episode and kind of figuring out what that looks like,
Yeah.
but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we had kind of notes we wanted to go over, and then like 5 minutes in, we were just having fun and talking about stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna post it.
yeah, it'll make its way out into the airwaves eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I'm a huge advocate, obviously, for obvious reasons. I currently produce 3 podcasts, 2 regionally and this one nationally, and it's been in a tremendous way of connecting with and meeting awesome people like you guys. So I'm a huge advocate. I definitely recommend it. So anything I can do to help there, I'm not going to punch the clock. Like, happy to help and lend some tips and advice anytime you guys need someone on that.
We definitely appreciate that. Yeah,
That'd be great.
it's on our 2025 make it happen list. Is
Yeah.
do some podcasts.
It's definitely something we want to do.
Yeah.
What would you say is the importance of, speaking of podcasting and working with builders, how would you rate the importance of networking, like in person? Because that's the one thing about marketing that is really difficult to scale. That, personal one-on-one networking takes time, takes patience, takes time out of the day. We can't network with, 1,000 people a week. It's very, one-on-one. We have to be very selective, and it's time consuming, and it's not always fruitful. But what would you say, how would you rate the importance of that for a real estate broker in 2025?
I think it's incredibly important. Like, your network is your net worth, to quote Ryan Serhant, or whoever he stole that from. But I think that where I've seen agents go wrong, and where we really try to help our agents with AYRE Realty, the brokerage, and the agents under us, is make sure you're networking with people who add value and you can add value to. I think a lot of new realtors like, oh, I need to go to this brokerage's networking event, this brokerage's networking event, this realtor's happy hour. And it's like you're meeting other realtors, which if you're brand new, that's great. You're going to pick up some tips and tricks. If you're trying to start a team or change teams, you're going to network with people who could be landing spots. But if you're happy where you're at, you need to be networking with attorneys and insurance people and lenders, people who have related industries that can be, cross-functional, but aren't your competition, because an insurance guy can refer to me and I can refer to an insurance guy, but another realtor's in Houston is not going to refer their clients to me,
Right.
no matter how specialized I am in something that they're maybe not as specialized in. So being strategic with who you're around. If you're not going to spend that time with an actual client, spend it with someone who could send you a client or you could send a client to. Not just realtor happy hours, but Nicole's the queen of networking. Her Rolodex is powerful. I've got my few people that I reach out to and really trust, but it's all about meeting the people in related industries and not getting distracted with realtor events, which is something, there are a lot of those in Houston because it is such a realtor dense area with all the influx of new people. And so just making sure that newer agents aren't distracted by, look how many realtors I met this week. It's like, that's great, but A, did you learn anything from them? And B, who did you actually meet that could send you a client or you could refer your clients to show that you're a local area expert? Like, oh, that's what Rocket Mortgage said? Cool. Call this guy who's brick and mortar in Cypress, Texas, where you're looking to buy, who knows the flood zone, knows the taxes, knows the insurance, and see what he has to say versus the national lender. And if those numbers are different, you just proved your worth off of your networking. So I think that's where you really can spend time wisely.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's so important to be strategic in who you network with and to kind of reverse engineer who those great referral partners could be. But going back to something you said earlier when it came to working with builders and how you approach that relationship, same way with any referral partner, I truly believe. It's not what they can do for you, it's what come to the table. First thing you need to know is what can you do for them. You don't even want to, I wouldn't even reach out to a potential referral partner unless I knew exactly, or I had some ideas of ways that I could help them somehow, and so I think that that's really important. But I agree, yeah, focus on, building a network of awesome referral partners that you can team up with. Nicole, how do you like to network? What's your strategy and what are your methods in networking?
So I think I'm a lot different than whenever I first got started. So I'm kind of two polar opposites now, and I think that's this is actually probably some great advice I can give someone getting started, because it is whole 100% honest review of my life. So yeah, when I first got started, I would try to hit every single networking event possible. My mentor at the time was like, this is what you need to do. You need to meet everybody. And to an extent, it was good. I got some investor clients out of that because investors do go to networking groups. So if that's the niche you want to be in, then, find those. But as he said, I kind of did start to learn, like, I need to be more selective. So I think starting out in your career, you should definitely go network. But as you figure out who your people are, if you're going to network and spend time with people, spend time with and keep giving to the same person. Mm-hmm. So it's a symbiotic relationship where they're giving to you. And then just in continuance of building newer relationships, we do pretty good because we want to make sure that we both have office hours and time at our desk, to where if we're going to network, we both spend the same time. Like, hey, we're going to spend time building, content and doing video in this community. And because we're out there, we also have so-and-so is at this, model home. We're going to go see them. And then there's a networking event where we can meet the developers at this time. So it's actually helped us a lot. So now we actually kind of share that. I don't want to call it a burden, but we share that part or aspect of our job, where we can okay, we're going to network with 2 or 3 people this week, and then the rest of that time we can kind of block out into doing other things, which I think has gotten very well. So
much more powerful when you can team up like that, right?
Yeah, it's more powerful, and it gives us more that we can offer to whoever we're trying to network with, right? Because they have 2 agents from one luncheon who want to bring them clients, and are going to try to refer people to them to help their business, which obviously once you give, you can also receive. So I think it's really helpful that we get to do that together.
Nicole, you offered a great segue there as the next topic was actually advice for newer agents. So would love to get maybe your takes, and it's great too that you're relatively early in your real estate career, and although and you've already achieved some great success, but all of the early challenges I think are probably still fresh in your mind, right? And you probably still run into challenges that you haven't run into before at this stage of your career. But what advice would you have? The industry is so alluring, it's so popular. Pre-licensing courses are full every week, and it's it looks. I see why it looks so alluring, and it is. It's a wonderful career, but I think that there are a lot of myths that could be dispelled. What advice would you have for someone who is A, thinking about being a realtor, or B, is just in the early stages of their career?
For sure. I think, that just goes back to kind of what we were talking about with the networking thing, for one. My two biggest things are, networking mishaps, maybe, and then shiny object syndrome. So I do think as agents, it'd be very wise whenever you first get in. Networking is super important, as we discussed, but to kind of have like an actual game plan, because that wasn't given to me when I came in. I was kind of, you are as an agent, you're thrown to the wolves. And if you may think you're with a great broker, or you have a great mentor, but if you're just meeting these people, you really don't know who they are. So having some self-accountability, if you can go ahead and just start that way. So if your amazing broker, I'm sure they're great, is telling you need to network every single day, that's fine from the start maybe. But, have a plan, in the next 2 months, I'm going to start slowing down from going to 3 networking events a week to maybe just 1 a week. Because as we discussed before, it starts to get kind of repetitive and where it's not helping you, and you need to make sure you're seeking out the correct people that can actually benefit you and you can benefit them. So I did waste a little bit of time with that. And then second advice, number 2, shiny object syndrome. I mean, it took me a little while to get started in my initial, beginning to my career, but once I got going really, really well, you are going to have possible vultures per se that might see that, and then you're going to have people that are trying to pull you in every other direction. And I had people that wanted me to go into investing and foreclosures and wholesaling and door knocking and everything, and it's as he said, when you start to get pulled in every other direction, you might think I can do this, I'm better than everyone else. And I know 60-year-old Brad that's been in real estate for 30 years says to pick my lane. Well, I'm young and I'm smarter than you, so I can do whatever I want and I'm going to do it. That's a very young and immature, and we learn, but I'm speaking from personal experience. I went through that. I had that I can do it, I'm fine. You can't, okay? Just stay in your lane. If you want to do 1 or 2 things, I can, work on investment stuff and do resale. And then he's really good with new construction, so we kind of see both. But there's just no way that you can, research foreclosure stuff and then research sub 2 and then research wholesaling. And then it's just not going to happen. And I had 13 clients at one time, under contract. And then I started to get my shiny object syndrome, and I'm putting myself out there by saying I tanked myself by getting super interested in all these things. And I went from being superstar up and coming agent to I don't have hardly anything going on. And I've had to drag myself out of the trenches from that, and do a lot of self-recognition of what are you doing? And that's why I kind of discussed earlier is we do resale now too as well, not just the new construction, but me and him had a talk of okay, let's look at where we've been putting our effort at what points in our career and where we made the most money. And when I look at where I made the most money, I'm these are the things I was doing when I had 20 clients at one time closing. So it's I want to do that again. So
Yeah.
yeah, those are my two biggest things is, networking is important, but try to go in with a game plan. I don't care if someone has a lot of experience and they're telling you like, go do all these things, but like set a personal, you know, goal and tracking system for yourself to not get too distracted with that. And then you can experiment a little bit, maybe take, a couple weeks.
CE class.
If you want to see what different things are, but figure it out and just stay there. And then if you get super good and you can hire 6 people to do the thing you got good at and then want to do something else, that's cool too. But just stay in your lane for a little bit at least, you know?
I
So,
totally agree. I laughed when you first said that because I've made that mistake. And I think that pretty much everyone at some point in their career is going to make that mistake of trying to serve everyone. And, again, going back to Seth Godin, he says, believe he and so many other people say that if you try to serve everyone, you'll serve no one.
Yeah, and I used to be a really big people pleaser too.
Yeah.
So I had a very maybe they'll be friends with me and they'll be nice and they'll be happy with me if I do this. And it's like I was trying to do that for everyone, and then it was kind of like, oh my goodness. And I came pretty close to quitting real estate entirely. So it can get very, very overwhelming. So.
Overwhelm. Yeah, overwhelm is the word that came to mind as you were describing that part of your career and that challenge that you went through. And the other thing I was going to say is that, hold on, I'm going to edit that out. I just lost my train of thought.
You're good.
What was the other? Oh, the other point you made that I really loved was having a plan for networking, and again, being intentional and having a strategy when it comes to networking. John, earlier you said that it might not be such a great idea to go out and network with real estate agents every day. And the thought that came to mind to me was it's easy to meet real estate agents. That's not hard to do. So I agree that you probably want to be a little bit more strategic in how to do that, who you network with. Well, why don't you jump in here real quick? What advice, John, would you have for new agents?
Yeah, just to build off what Nicole already said, like there's so many things you can do as a realtor. There's so many niches, there's so many communities, there's so many ways to make your name in the industry. Like really pick the one that speaks to you and where you can be authentically yourself and know everything about it. Go an inch wide, mile deep, and invest in the relationships that are beneficial to you and you can benefit other people in that niche. And if you're interested in, like I said, there are a million things you can do, but find the one that you're really actually interested in and go all in. And the other bit of advice I always tell every agent in our brokerage that I really focus on is it's kind of two sides of the same coin. Is one, you have to have as many real estate conversations as possible. And I love social media. I do a lot on social media, but until that video turns into a conversation, it's just a video. It's completely useless. But once someone who doesn't follow me or something, they respond to one of my polls, or I see them liking consistent videos and I can send them a message, be like, hey, I've seen you've liked a lot of my videos featuring houses in Cypress, Texas. Like, are you interested in moving there? Do you live there? And start a conversation. I get clients from that. But just the video itself is just a video.
Right.
And so you want to find ways to start conversations, social media, and even more so in person. Like, where can you go to meet your ideal client? Like Ryan Serhant says, like he joined 4 different gyms when he first got into real estate. So he could go 4 times a day or 1 time a day to 4 different gyms and meet different people who shared a passion that he shared, which was fitness. Like, where's your coffee shop business? Where's your fashion business? Whatever you're interested in, find a way to meet people that share that same interest. And you can have a real estate in-person conversation where it's natural to say, oh yeah, what do you do for work? Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'm a realtor. And once you start those conversations, it's a lot of value to that. But you have to put yourself in those situations. You have to go to those places where you're going to meet people and have those conversations. And until you have the actual conversation, you're not really doing anything that's going to lead you to a closing table.
I 1,000% agree with that. That reminded me now of what Nicole said earlier that I had forgotten there momentarily. It came back to my mind. She had mentioned earlier, find your people. And I feel like that's worth repeating and underscoring how important it is to not everyone is our people, right? We really need to find those that we really connect with and can have friendships and relationships with. And I really think that the point you brought up about like go where your ideal client is. So I've mentioned this before, and I think it may seem for someone who's not in the industry or maybe new to the industry, it may seem kind of far fetched, but if you want to sell country club homes, join the country club. If if you want to network with, if you want to sell waterfront homes, buy a boat. Get into boating if you want to network with boaters, and if you want clients who are tennis players, etc. The list goes on. So, I think that's really. Oh, and something that another guest on the podcast brought up last year in an episode was there was a particular neighborhood in this market where I'm at that is highly sought after. Just it's probably one of the handful of most prestigious neighborhoods in the Charlotte metro area, and it's on the shores of Lake Norman. And she knew that she wanted to work in that community. There were about 900 homes in the community, and she's like, these are going to be my people. So she and her husband bought a home in that neighborhood, so that early in her career, and that's how she, developed her business and ended up dominating the neighborhood over the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Even the places you go, it was funny. We were on a date, and it was like a nicer restaurant. And we ended up sitting at the bar because of just like the wait. But it's one of those restaurants where like the bar is even like, it was a classy place. And it was funny because we talk pretty frequently about like what are the types of places our ideal client goes to. And the couple that sat next to us, the guy sat next to him. And I was like, kind of like looking at his clothes and his shoes, and I'm like, that's his ideal client. And it's funny because he didn't get a chance to talk to him. He's kind of listening, like seeing if he could interject. Nothing really came up, but it's funny because we will say like, hey, every once in a while we should go to like this specific coffee shop or this specific bar or whatever, because you never know who you could be sitting next to. But like, it was an older guy, probably in his early 50s, late 40s, wearing the same type of shoes, same type of shirt. And I'm like, isn't that like Indochino brand shirt? I think he's wearing the same thing you do. It's just like, regardless of how people want to split it and like, oh, you're being judgmental, but like you get along with certain people, you can talk about certain things with people that just like, if like, I like to play sand volleyball. If I meet someone who plays sand volleyball, we're going to be able to talk. So there's nothing like, oh, I don't want to work with them if they don't wear certain whatever. It's just like, it makes it easier to identify the possible like connection. So put yourself in certain places where you're like, mirror is going to be sitting next to you.
Right. Or you have some common ground, right?
Yeah. And I always tell our newer agents, like when you're doing social media content, kind of a build off of that, who are you trying to speak to? Because you really want your brand and your social media, it really is great at attracting the people you want to attract. So who are you trying to show this house to? Who are you trying to show this community to? Who are you trying to show local attractions to? And target every video as if you're sitting across the table from that person, and you'll attract that person. But if all your videos are speaking to whoever, to random first-time home buyer, luxury buyer, new moms, like single dads, like whatever you want to draw it up, if you're speaking to everyone, the odds of you really building a brand are really small. But if you're like, hey, I want to sell this type of home, or I want to work with this type of client, put out content that speaks to that person, speak to the family, speak to the relocation buyer, whatever it might be, and build that brand that attracts that person. And yeah, there are going to be people who don't register with that brand, but they also might not register with your 1 in a million video that kind of speaks to what they're interested in. So really focus on who is your ideal client, give them a name, give them a vocation, give them hobbies, and then try to have that video conversation. Every video you post, every time you door knock and start the conversation with that ideal client, and you'll find yourself attracting your ideal client just because that's what you're putting out there is who you want to have conversations with.
I totally agree. I think that's a great point. And it doesn't have to be, too. I talk a lot about the luxury buyer and the luxury client, but I mean, you can find your people in a running club, at the Tuesday night cycle, the Tuesday night ride, bike ride, or I mean, you can find your people in all kinds of different places. You could, if you have young kids, you could coach t-ball. I don't know too many realtors that have time for that, but at least get involved, right? So get to know the other parents. But yeah, I just think it's so important. Another example that came to mind is someone here in my brokerage, a broker who, and in North Carolina, we call agents brokers, so, but we're agents. So she about 3 years ago joined 4 years ago joined the yacht club, and very not I wouldn't say exclusive, but a very affluent club here on Lake Norman, and they have a couple thousand members, and it's a really, really cool place. I love the place. I'm not a member. Someday I might be, but it's a great place. So anyway, she knew that she wanted to do business in this neighborhood, and she was honestly an average agent when she began this strategy. She was probably in the 2, 3, 4 million a year range, and which is actually above average, but I mean, as far as successful agents go, I would say it's average. And then just intentionally began socializing, becoming involved in the club, making connections, friends, and 2 years ago she was up to just under 10 million in annual sales, and last year it was like this compound effect, right? And she found this exponential growth, and all this work over the last 2 or 3 years resulted in a $27 million year. So with a couple of transactions that were over 8 million each. So these are like, to your point, and Nicole mentioned this earlier too, that how long it took you when you began networking, Nicole, 8 months to a year to start establishing these relationships and these friendships and connections. And I think that that's really worth underscoring too for newer agents to understand that going in, that you got to it's a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So, yeah. Awesome. I love it. I normally don't talk this much, but I'm excited about the topics that we've been talking about. So I appreciate your patience as I digress so much.
No, this is really fun. And every single agent out there needs to find their niche, needs to find their people, and needs to think about how to have actual conversations, whether it's a run club, a bike club, a spin class, a yacht club, the country club, their favorite coffee shop, a used bookstore, whatever it is. Find ways to get in front of people, have a genuine conversation where you're able to tell them, I help people buy and sell houses for a living. Do you need to buy or sell a house? Do you have a friend who needs to buy or sell a house? Like, I'm a real person. This is the authentic version of me reading this used copy of Walden Pond. Like, let's have a conversation about something we share and interested in. And that's what everyone needs to do. And once you find, don't try to do that to everyone. Do it to the people who you can authentically connect with. And that's when it takes time, but you can start to see that compound effect, like you said. And you get your first deal, and then they refer you to a second deal, and you get your own deal. And then you have 2 deals, and then you have 4 deals. And but it does take time. And selling sunset doesn't show you that, but it does take time, and you have to put in the relationship work, and it's worth it.
For sure. Yeah, selling sunset doesn't show that for sure. Yeah.
Make a lot of selling sunset jokes around here.
When are they really selling and selling sunset?
Yeah. That's okay. It's fair game. Yeah, for sure. Nicole and John, really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are, and I know you have another appointment to get to. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join the podcast and having this awesome conversation. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can listeners reach out to you and connect with you and learn more about John and Nicole Cartee?
Yeah, so we both have our Instagrams. We have our personal, and then we have our shared real estate account. So I'll just list all 3 really quickly.
Sure.
So our Instagram for our us doing real estate is Cartees Do Real Estate. And then my Instagram is Nicole Cartee _. And then John is
John Cartee _.
Yeah.
Really simple.
Yeah. That's pretty much
Perfect.
it. And then obviously we have our emails, thecartees@ayrerealty.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So social is a good place to start and connect. And yeah, I would definitely, I'll have that information in the description for this episode, of course, and look forward to tagging both of you and your partnership account as well on Instagram when we release this episode. And again, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Jeff. Really appreciate it. This has been a
Awesome.
lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us.